third quarter of 2020. Everyone is probably aware of the critical role of macroeconomic stability on the economic landscape. This forum not only is about transparency, but the fact that there will be some dialogue. And this dialogue is very important, as well as the transparency. But more than that, we here at the Central Bank are privileged to have the Honorable Minister of Finance here with us today. There's always been a talk about monetary and fiscal policy coordination. In my opinion, that's being lip service. Today we have it here in reality. So, Mr. Minister, you're very welcome here today. And to our audience here, I want you to take advantage of this opportunity so that after the reading of this communique, you can engage with us, ask any questions, any burning issues that you think are relevant to your constituents. So without much ado, I'll welcome you and open the floor. So the next item here will be introductory remarks by the Executive Governor of the Central Bank of Liberia.
Thank you, Francis. Honorable Augustine Kpehe Ngafuan, the Minister of Finance and Development Planning of the Republic of Liberia, members of the Monetary Policy Committee of the Central Bank of Liberia, deputy governors, and members of the senior management team of the Central Bank of Liberia, the President and members of the Liberia Bankers Association, the President and members of the Insurers Association of Liberia, the President and members of the Liberia Business Association, the President and members of the Liberia Chamber of Commerce, the President and members of the Liberia Marketing Association, the President and members of the Women in Cross-Border Trade, the President and members of the National Forest Bureau Association, members of the academic community, members of the private sector, members of the civil society, members of the Fourth Estate, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, everyone. On behalf of the Board of Governors of the Central Bank of Liberia and the Monetary Policy Committee, let me welcome all of you to the premises of the Central Bank of Liberia. Thank you again for attending today's reading of the Monetary Policy Committee Communique. The MPC plays a critical and important role in the formulation of the monetary policy decisions of the bank that are aimed at promoting price and financial stability in the Liberian economy. Our purpose of inviting you today, this morning, is because the decisions that we make here are intended to build upon and improve what you do, improve the general livelihood of the ordinary people and the general business environment. The MPC communique, which we'll be reading and issuing to the public this morning, reflects the decisions of the committee following its 23rd regular meeting held on July 16, 2025, and our commitment to transparency and accountability. During the meeting, the committee evaluated recent economic developments and assessed the risks to the inflation, exchange rate developments, and the growth outlook. Today's reading of the communique will transmit key decisions reached by the MPC after thorough deliberations, and data analysis. Ladies and gentlemen, we are honored today with the presence of the Minister of Finance of the Republic of Liberia, the head of Liberia's fiscal authority, with whom the Central Bank of Liberia, as the head of Liberia's monetary authority, collaborates very closely in addressing the present challenges of Liberia's financial ecosystem. While the Central Bank of Liberia is charged with the primary responsibility of achieving and maintaining domestic price stability in the Liberian economy by formulating and implementing the monetary policy of Liberia, the CBL cannot achieve this feat without the collaboration of fiscal authorities. We are also honored today with the presence of heads of commercial banks, with whom the CBL, while providing regulatory oversight, works very closely in the transmission of our monetary policy decisions. Mr. Minister, ladies and gentlemen, we are continuing to work closely with our mobile money operators for a seamless mobile money operation in the country via an integration initiative as a step closer to the launch of the National Electronic Payment Switch. Ladies and gentlemen, a 24 hours open economy is possible, and at the CBL, we are working towards achieving this milestone as we forge ahead with the path of digitizing the financial system. A cash-light economy is also possible as we move toward a fully digitized economy with enhanced interoperability among the many players in the digital financial space. We therefore want to call on all our partners, the commercial banks, the mobile money operators, the fintech, to support us on this journey. We want to encourage the commercial banks to move on with the development of mobile apps that will help make banking more easily accessible. We want to see more commercial banks encouraging their clients on the PAPS platform that promotes inter-regional and inter-African trade that will significantly reduce the demand for US dollars and by extension the exchange rate pressure and support our long-term strategy for the ultimate de-dollarization of the Liberian economy. Let me end these few remarks by re-emphasizing that we can achieve the impossible by working together, and by quoting the late South African President Nelson Mandela when he said, "It always seems impossible until it is done." Thank you very much for coming to this very important occasion this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Governor, for those very thoughtful words. With that done, I have the opportunity again to invite our distinguished guest, the person of the Honorable Minister of Finance, to give a few introductory remarks. Honorable Ngafuan.
The Honorable Executive Governor of the Central Bank of Liberia, Honorable Henry F. Samoa, Deputy Governor James Wilfred, and top members of the Central Bank Management Technical Staff here, President of the Bureau Bankers Association, President or head of the Insurance, is it Brokers Association? Insurance Association. Need to get things right. And that others who are strong stakeholders, not only the management of the economy, but the success that we achieve or that we aim for in the economy. And I would be remiss if I didn't give a special recognition to the President of the Liberia Bank for Development and Investment, that Mr. Allison, as chairman of the board, I don't want him to call me in the corner and say he will recognize everyone. He didn't recognize me. Our good friends stuff, the Food Festival. For me coming somber, because it is like coming home. The central bank is home to me in a lot of ways. When the central bank was established, from the transition, after the transition from a national bank to a fully independent central bank, we had the honor of being hired in a meritocratic manner by the then Governor Edie Salime. And I came in as a technician, a bank examiner in the supervision department. And I see some of my colleagues still here. I'm appropriately flanked. And so I come, I see brothers, I see sisters in a professional environment. This place has always been a place of merit, a place of honor, and that people even now produce the President of the Liberia Bank for Development and Investment. You know, another central banker. Yeah, central bank is critical to this economy. One of the things that I reflect on was that when I came from graduate school in 2004, when the late Governor Charles Green had the reins here, and I was placed as a professional trainee in his office for almost 6 months. I was working with the governor of the central bank, and I needed an office, but he said no, he had me renting his office in the corner. And one of the things I did was to sit in meetings of the Monetary Policy Communique, and giving him some advisory notes and also learning. So today, if I can come, I'm on the fiscal side, you can invite me here in an act of transparency, because I'm told it's been a long while since this kind of open forum to put out a communique on monetary policy have been held. So let me congratulate you, Honorable Governor, and the team, the board, for this. This shows that we recognize that we are not perfect men and women. We come in humility. We come to hear from our people. And some of the decisions that the Monetary Policy Committee has arrived, on, are all informed by the concerns that we all, led by the President, are seized with to address the issues, to develop this country, and to take Liberia to a different level. The Central Bank of Liberia and the Finance Ministry, Finance and Development Planning Ministry, we are like Siamese twins. We are responsible for this economy. No matter how well we work, if we do not have the support of the central bank, we will fail. And no matter how well you work, if you do not have our support, you will fail. So our destinies are tied together. And the coordination between the Central Bank of Liberia and the Ministry of Finance is excellent under your able leadership. And let me say something, and I will say this publicly. I've known your governor for ages. I've known him. We were in school and he was a man of excellence. And during those years, he was a permanent fixture on the principals list. When the honor roll list at the university was put out, if you didn't see the name Henry Samuel, then you know that it was an error. He was a permanent fixture. He's a man of excellence. And his stint in the banking sector for those years, the RB Bank, at one point, let me confess, in my former life as Minister of Finance, I wanted to snatch him from RB Bank to bring him in the ministry. I had succeeded with John B.S. Davis at LBDI. When RB got to know my intention, they put a rescue strategy against me. But it all helped his prominence and his contribution to the bank and the economy. I've known men of excellence in the classroom, but it's a difference to have people of excellence in the classroom being people of excellence in the workroom. And you can also be a man of excellence in the classroom, a man of excellence in the workroom, but governments are different groups. There have been people who have been excellent in the classroom, the workroom. When it comes to government, they fizzle out. They don't understand how to hit target, sometimes within the chaos that government brings. But I have been personally very impressed, and I say it candidly, truthfully, with the seamless transition of Governor Samuel into central government, into government, a tough place where, you know, sometimes some people call it a dog-eat-dog environment. But I have been impressed watching the seamless transition. I've been in meetings locally, internationally, where I've seen his brilliance, his diplomacies, his tact, and the poignancy of his argument, helping us to make a strong case for Liberia. And then it appears like he's being government oil when it's just about, you know. So I'm impressed. I need to say that publicly. So let me say that we support the central bank, and we will continue to be strong partners of the bank. There are a lot of things that we do together. A few months ago, I led a team. We went to the National Food Authority. We decided to have some conversation with stakeholders at the port. And we had everyone there, the Minister of Commerce and others, but the brokers and the traders and business people. And one of the things that came out was the delay in clearing goods at the port and the need to take action. And it became evident that one of the stumbling blocks to that is that we don't have a 24-hour payment system in the country, because the port at the time, I think, was closing its work hours, I think, at 4 o'clock or a little sooner than that. The question was, how can we ensure that people clear their goods quicker? At least the port has taken some action. We're talking about night services, but it's still not as efficient as we wanted, because the payment architecture, where someone can pay and clear things quickly, hasn't been fully operationalized. So the payment switch is very critical. But I've been in meetings, even at the level of the World Bank, with the governor, ensuring that the timeline of delivery of this project, almost 2 years, was truncated. The governor was clear that we need it, and we need it now. The governor will support you on that, because once we achieve this, it will do wonders in a lot of ways. Because every time, it's not just for the port, but just using the port as an example, delay of the clearing of goods in the port has an impact on the economy, because the demurrage is charged to importers, who pass on the costs to consumers. So we are working in a lot of ways. The central bank is doing a lot of things. We're doing a whole lot. The net effect is to make sure that we leapfrog. We are facing challenges, but we are still hitting target. People wonder how. It's because we in the government, led by the president, we are not only men and women of thought, we are men and women of action. We are ratcheting delivery. We are looking at all the bottlenecks and making sure that we move faster. So on a lot of fronts, many things are happening. And people wonder why. It's because of the execution mentality the president has, and we all in government have imbibed. We must execute, we must deliver, and we must deliver on time. There's an urgency out there, and so we cannot afford to sleep behind the wheels. So, Mr. Governor and the team, let me congratulate you again. We will need to take some complementing actions on our side, and we've been taking in the spirit of discussions. We'll continue to backstop the central bank. An independent central bank is what we need. We, as a fiscal authority, we don't have the independence that you have. But your independence helps the economy. The president, the Minister of Finance, and the entire government supports that. And continue to do what you do best. At the end of the day, it is not just big policy statements. We are trying to impact on the lives of the people in the villages, in the streets, in the schools. It is changing their lives that matter. And we all need to track that. We need to listen to their concerns and take actions to make sure that the economy is not only on an even keel, but as much as possible, we are not leaving anyone behind. So, thank you again, and that God bless your team. Thanks to others in the banking system, the Bankers Association. I was saying that we are Siamese twins, Central Bank and the Ministry of Finance. But no matter how close we can be, if the banking system does not support us, we will fall remarkably. So we need them because their efficiency is good for us. We started a meeting with the Bankers Association last week. We may want to have another meeting next week where we want to drill deep on what we can do better to make sure that the banks are enabled to support us better. But let me say thanks to the banking system. You know, you all are developing packages, programs, and schemes to help our people. And I will be remiss if I don't note the positive appreciation we have about the introduction of the Pan-African payment settlement system. I was at the launch, and that was remarkable. The need for foreign exchange to transact business has been one of the pressures that have been having some, not so helpful effect on the exchange rate. But besides that, the inconveniences our traders go through. The fact that some trader in Liberia wanting to purchase goods in Ghana or Nigeria does not have to purchase or does not have to use US dollars, can come to a bank in Liberia and then pay for their goods and services in those countries. They don't have to physically carry money. We subject them to risks on the road. It's quietly revolutionary. And I heard the testimonies of common people, market people. We need to market this more. Those little things that change the lives of our people, more people need to be aware so that they sign up to the services. And that when the payment system, the switch system is on, I know very soon, our entire revenue collection system will go up. So I extend regards from the Commissioner General of the Liberia Revenue Authority. He is praying and fasting that this thing comes on quickly. And the entire government, which is you, Mr. Governor, and the team, well. Thank you very much, and congratulations.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for those words of inspiration. And we thank you also for the assurance you've given to us here at the Central Bank about the partnership working between the bank and the Ministry of Finance. With that, we are always going to be on upward trajectory of the economy. We also thank you for your very kind words of our governor. What we do thank you for is that he didn't snatch him away from the IB Bank. Had you done that, we probably wouldn't have had him here as the executive governor. So now, for the real item, the high point of this event, which is the reading of the Monetary Policy Communique, I will now invite the Executive Governor to read the policy document, the monetary policy decisions that will guide this bank for the next quarter. Governor Samoa.
Thank you, Francis. Thank you, Mr. Minister, for your kind words and your assurances of collaboration with the central bank as we steer the affairs of the Liberian economy, and also for recognizing the Liberal Bankers Association. I have said to the President, I said, Mr. President, we owe them a debt of gratitude for managing the situation early on this year. And so, again, I just want to join the Minister of Finance to thank you, the Liberal Bankers Association, for working along with the central bank in the transmission of our monetary policy decisions and supporting the economic growth of the country. Having said that, let me move on to the task assigned to me today, which is the reading of the communique. And it says Central Bank of Liberia Communique number 23, July 23rd, 2025, for the Monetary Policy Committee meeting held on Wednesday, 16th July 2025. The Central Bank of Liberia CBL Monetary Policy Committee convened on July 16, 2025. The committee reviewed recent macroeconomic developments and assessed the risks to the inflation, exchange rate, and growth outlook in both the domestic and global economies for the second quarter of 2025. Following the deliberations, the committee decided to maintain the monetary policy rate at 17.25%. The summary below outlines the key discussions that informed this decision. On the global front, the global economy continues to slow down, caused by heightened trade fragmentation, rising debt vulnerabilities, climate-related disruptions, and geopolitical shocks. In its April 2025 World Economic Outlook, the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, downgraded its growth projection by 0.5% to 2.8% for 2025, lower than the 3.3% recorded in 2024. Similarly, a subdued growth for 2025 was also projected by both the World Bank and the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the OECD, reflective of deep-rooted productivity slowdown, weakened investor sentiment, tight financial conditions, and geopolitical shocks. Although the risks are moderating, the committee noted that the constraints in the global economy continue with cyclical balances, policy trade-offs, rising fiscal vulnerabilities, and regional divergences in inflation outcomes. While advanced economies are cooling off under the weight of tight monetary policy and fiscal drag, many emerging markets and developing economies are showing greater resilience, particularly those with large domestic demand bases and improving macroeconomic policy framework. Moderation in global headline inflation continues, but the rate of deceleration remains slow. The IMF projected global inflation to moderate to 4.3% from the 5.7% recorded in 2024, reflecting the effects of subdued global commodity prices, normalization of global logistics, and tighter monetary policy settings across most economies. Core inflation, however, remains persistent in many economies due to strong wage growth and service sector price pressures. Moreover, inflation rates persist, particularly in emerging markets and developing economies, largely due to currency depreciation, commodity price volatility, and climate-related supply disruptions. The committee was, however, optimistic about the projected moderation in global headline inflation in response to policy effectiveness, particularly in advanced economies. Nevertheless, it was noted that a double-digit inflation rate in sub-Saharan Africa was mainly driven by fiscal pressures, climate-related supply shocks, and monetary policy transmission constraints. The varying movements in global commodity prices were also observed by the committee. It was noted that the international prices of rice and crude oil are predicted to decline. Similarly, the prices of rubber, cocoa, palm oil, and iron ore are predicted to fall in the quarters ahead. However, gold price is predicted to continue its upward trajectory, supported by strong global demand amid ongoing global economic uncertainties. On the domestic front, the NPC was satisfied with the quarterly performance of the economy, noting a 4.3% expansion from the 3.9% expansion in economic activity in the previous quarter. The committee noted that this expansion was on account of a rise in reserve money and a moderation in consumer prices. The committee was optimistic that at this level, the economy could reach its projected annual growth target of 5.6% for 2025. The committee was satisfied with the moderation in consumer prices in the economy, noting that inflation moderated to 11.1% in the second quarter from 12.5% in the first quarter of 2025. This moderation, the committee noted, was mainly on account of decline in food prices, administered prices, and market prices. The committee observed that the inflation forecast of 10.3% with a bandwidth of plus or minus 2% for the third quarter points to the moderation in consumer prices. However, the NPC was concerned that the current global uncertainty with declines in the prices of most of the country's export commodities will have adverse implications for sustaining the moderating trend in inflation. Notwithstanding, the committee remains optimistic that proactive monetary policy action, including the current tight monetary policy stance, will be helpful for safeguarding economic stability in the quarters ahead. In the banking sector, the committee noted that in the second quarter of 2025, the banking sector remained broadly stable, capitalized, and liquid despite a marginal decrease in the liquidity ratio. The capital adequacy ratio is estimated to grow to 31.5%, 21.5%, well above the regulatory minimum of 10%, while total assets, total deposits, and total loans and advances are also estimated to rise during the quarter under review. However, the committee noted that non-performing loans remain a significant financial stability risk, with estimated growth of the NPLs exceeding the bank's tolerable limit of 10% by 16.7 percentage points. The committee is, however, hopeful that the recent implementation of the approved NPL resolution framework will help to bring the NPL levels to below the tolerable limit. Monetary aggregates and financial markets development. The committee noted that the 7.3% estimated increase in net domestic assets, observing that this rise was on account of a 12.9% growth in domestic credit. The MPC also noted that the 2.6% rise in currency in circulation to 35.1 billion Liberian dollars, reflecting the estimated 3% increase in currency outside the banking system. Notwithstanding, the committee maintains that these changes were not significant enough to disrupt the relative macroeconomic stability. The committee welcomed developments in the financial markets operations and acknowledged that activation of the corridor system transmission mechanism is a strong indication that the policy rate is gaining traction. The committee noted that the 6% rise in CBL bills issuance was on account of a 7% rise in institutional investors' subscription. It was however noted that retail investment in the CBL bills fell by 4%. The committee expressed concerns that the upcoming festive season could have implications for the potential reduction in CBL bills subscriptions, but remain optimistic that any resulting decline will be temporary. The MPC noted the movements in the interbank market of 15 swap transactions totaling US $32.55 million and 8 placements valued at US $3.74 million, emphasizing that these developments are crucial for enhancing monetary policy transmission. On the fiscal development side, the fiscal operations of the government during the quarter showed net injections in both currencies. The committee noted that although the net injection of Liberian dollar liquidity contributed to the money supply growth, it did not distort stability in the economy. The US dollar injection, after accounting for debt repayment, to some extent also helped to mitigate the exchange rate pressure. On account of external debt repayment, the fiscal impulse of government was slightly negative at negative 0.14% of GDP, despite an expansionary fiscal stance of 2.1% of GDP. The committee noted that due to these developments, the government fiscal operations did not subject the economy to further exchange rate and inflationary pressures. On the external sector side, it was noted during the deliberations that the merchandise trade recorded a deficit widening by 35.9%, which is 3.8% of GDP, largely driven by the 23.4% growth in merchandise imports payments, despite the 19.2% increase in merchandise export receipts during the quarter. The committee also noted that the gross international reserves grew by an estimated 2.01% to US $537.2 million, mainly due to rise in foreign liquid assets. However, the months of import cover fell to an estimated 2.1 months on account of the growth recorded in import payments during the quarter. The NPC noted a rise in personal remittance inflows by 11.4%, including remittances terminated to mobile wallets to US $236.5 million, 4.6% of GDP, expressing satisfaction that the growth in net remittances helped to relatively ease the pressure on the Liberian dollar during the quarter under review. The committee also noted that the Liberian dollar remained broadly stable against the US dollar during the period under review. The committee was optimistic that strengthening collaboration with other stakeholders would complement the bank's tight monetary policy stance. Finally, NPC decisions. At the end of the deliberations, the committee acknowledged the decline in consumer prices during the quarter and the moderate inflation forecast for the third quarter of 2025. The committee noted that the moderation in global headline inflation and global growth, along with the declining prices of rice and fuel, was a positive development. However, the fall in international prices of some of Liberia's major exports, rubber, cocoa beans, and raw palm oil, was a concern for the economy. The committee also noted the rise in net remittance inflows that helped to contribute to the relative stability of the exchange rate. Now, therefore, to strengthen liquidity management and ensure macroeconomic stability, the committee unanimously resolved to 1. Maintain the monetary policy rate at 17.25% until the next assessment. 2. Maintain the corridor at 2.5 and negative 7.5 percentage points around the NPR for the standing credit and the standing deposit facilities, respectively. And 3, maintain the reserve requirement ratios at 25% and 10% for Liberian and US dollars, respectively. The committee assures the public that it will continue to closely monitor both global and domestic economic developments and stands ready to act proactively in response to unexpected shocks in order to support macroeconomic stability in accordance with the bank's mandate. Signed, Henry F. Samoa, Executive Governor and Chairman of the Monetary Policy Committee of the Central Bank of Liberia. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Governor. Now is your time, and I'm encouraging all of our stakeholders to give us feedback, having listened to Governor Samoa's reading of the Monetary Policy Communique. We encourage you to engage, actively share your thoughts, and give your own insights. To do that, you will just raise your hand, give us your name, and where you're from. You'll be recognized by my colleague over there. So now is all your time. We will particularly welcome comments, feedback from financial institutions, private sector representatives, civil society, and the academia, as well as the media, in that order. So, any feedback from any representatives from financial institutions? We have one already.
Honorable Governor, our Honorable Minister, and other executive of the Central Bank, we thank you for this meeting. I will not repeat what the Honorable Minister has said about you. I've been around here for a while. I always joke that this is my third administration in Liberia. And when it comes to governor also too, how many governors are here? 1, 2. You are the fourth one now. So what I'm saying this is, before now, we are not called to this kind of meeting. We just see a memo from the central bank saying that the MPR rate is this, or these are the decision on reserve requirement. But since you've taken over, this is the second one, if I'm not mistaken. And it's a good sign that you actually consider us in taking your decisions. And you carry that along, not the one that we hear from the news that MPR rate has been changed, or the cash reserve has been increased or not increased. At least we are one of the first person to hear whatever you're doing. I took some notes when you were making your opening remarks on the switch, digitization, perhaps dollarization, the dollarization of the Liberian economy, and cash-like policy. These are some of the pain points that, you are one of us, so you know where the shoe pinches us more. All what you mentioned here are key, and I was happy when the Honorable Minister said the timeline for the switch coming on board, you managed to get it closer. I remember when we had a meeting on the switch here, and they said 2026, some of us almost passed out. That's okay, we still have to wait on the 2026 to be able to do this. This is something that we have today, like the Minister said. It will remove a lot of redundancy from the system. A lot of redundancy. Just even sending a check for clearing, counting cash, doing all those things is a lot of redundancies. Online real time is what everybody is used to in every geography that we've seen that are very progressive. So if it's something that you can get done tomorrow, we will really be happy, sir. When I tell people that we don't have a suit, they ask, how do you operate? And you tell them, just yesterday, my CFO was just asking me that, so how do we do transaction? I have to explain to him, even if he was shocked, he's from Gambia. And he's shocked that, how come? for the check, I mean, you take your card to another bank, the check have to go outside of the country, then come back again. So the other one is digitization. With the high cost of processing cash, printing new cash or whatever, I think it's something that we need to look at seriously. And this can only happen by way of the central bank coming up with some of the policies that may appear as revolutionary. Revolutionary in the sense that it's going to cause a shock in the system. You make mention of cash light. We have to. The only way people will be forced to use the digital means of doing transactions is when there is a consequence for continuing the old ways we are doing things. So you have instances today where a customer will come to your bank and they will tell you they want $500,000 cash. Even America that uses the cash printed there, you can't walk up into a bank and say I want $500,000. And they start using this as a measurement of how efficient one bank is to the other. They will tell you if you go to bank A, they will never have money. I say me too, I will never have that kind of money. You have to give me time. So they start pitching you against each other, tell you that one bank, and it creates a lot of redundancy. We are lucky in this environment where incident of robbery, I mean, in terms of security, Liberia is very safe. So when people know that you have that kind of cash sitting in your vault that can come in tomorrow morning and be able to withdraw 500,000, you're already announcing to them that I'm a candidate that you can come and rob. So we need to combine these two together. In as much as we are pushing for digitization, we should be looking at policies that will drive people such that it's not voluntary compliance. I come from Nigeria. I remember when they started it, we thought it would never work. But it did. They went further again to say that you cannot even write check that is more than 9.99. Meaning that any amount above 9.99, you must do it through electronic means. And that has really helped the system. It also helped in terms of corruption. So you can trail where the payment is coming from, where it's going to. As against now that you have people coming to the bank collect cash, you don't even know what they're using the cash for. So these two for me is critical. The other one is the issue of PAPs. Today, PAPs we're having a limitation on it. So it is countered. And the reason why this is happening because of Liberia is a dual currency. So you have instances where, because it's central bank led here, meaning that you have to do Liberian dollars. People have US dollar with them. They have to first convert it to Liberian dollars before now transferring it out. By the time you start having that conversion to Liberian dollar first, you first lose some money. On the other side also, they are going to use the buying rate of the US dollar because you still have to convert it back on the other side. So you are having this reluctancy coming in respect to cash. Where in other countries, Liberia will have been advantage, and I can understand where it's coming from. We've taken this up severally with some people. But they still tell you that the mobile money, you can transfer your US dollar. Why can I not transfer US dollar on PAPS platform also too? We've taken it with the PAPS, and the understanding is that it's coming from the central bank, that specifically it must be Liberian dollars. But a lot of our customers today, if you look at the money in circulation, even in most banks, you have over 80% of our deposit in US dollars. So if you have to use Liberian dollars for PAPs, that means that you must first convert from your US dollar to Liberian dollar. And on the other side also, they have to use that buying rate. So you have instances that we've tested some transactions where you want to transfer, say, $2,000 to Nigeria. By the time you convert it, you find out that you have to do $2,300 for you to be able to get that 2,000 equivalent on the other side. Just simply because of you have to move from one currency to another currency to another currency back to the currency on the other side. So I think it's something that we have to look at. Have that flexibility such that if I want to do my transfer using US dollars, I don't have to first convert it to Liberian dollars before. With that said, I'm giving you the assurance of the Bankers Association. You have 110% our support. We are conjoined teams. I will not be part of the conjoined. You know that the conjoined teams have two sides to it. One will be more active, one will drag the other one. We can assure that we will not be the one dragging you back. Rather, we'll be the one pushing you to be able to achieve whatever you want to achieve. So thank you for this, and I'm really happy with your presentation and all watches. I see that most of the resolution will still remain the way we are. The economy has been stable. I can give it to the central bank. In the last 3 months or thereabout, at the beginning of the year, there was anxiety when the rate was just going up. But I can say from April to now, it's been stable. Rate has stabilized to a large extent. So that anxiety that will cause panic for people to start speculating has been removed. So thank you so much. With you and your team, I will continue to have more collaboration as we go forward. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Mr. Olalekan is the head of the Liberian Bankers Association and also CEO for Bloomberg. So that's a dual position. So he deserves.
President for life.
He deserves. so he deserves the extended comments. But beyond that, I'll advise that you put up your hand and try to be brief in your comment. The only exception was the head of the Bankers Association and the CEO for Bloomberg.
Okay, thank you, sir. Taking into consideration what you just said, I will give you what is going to be a summary of what I intend to say.
I'm sorry, sir.
No, but on a serious note, like the minister mentioned, R2 a product of the central bank. And I recruited into the central bank directly out of college about 22, 23 years ago. Like he was as a junior bank examiner. And the reason I'm mentioning that is because of the fact that for all the years I was here, as a member of the central bank staff, growing up from a junior examiner up to the level of director of TEF, founded that about 2 years ago, I do not recall a meeting of this sort prior to your ascendancy the governor of the central bank, where monetary policy decisions were not just announced, but the level of introspection and deliberation of money to make the decision was laid on bed for the public to hear. And that tells us, and that speaks to what the moderator said earlier, one of the intention of this meeting is in the interest of transparency. And not everybody across the state was going to agree with the rationale that you laid out, but the fact that you did, and as eloquently as you did, suggested them or should tell them that these were not decisions that were reached lightly or arbitrarily, that you consider confluence of factors in arriving at the decisions that you did. And that for me is perhaps the biggest takeaway of this discussion. In addition to everything the president for life of the LB has mentioned, he keeps wanting to withdraw away from it. Stop with it. There's one other thing that you talked about in the many factors that were considered in arriving at the decisions that you did. You talked about the NPLs, and now for the uninitiated NPLs and non-performing loans. That is of course an issue that seriously is dragging the banks down. I feel so too is the Minister of Finance. You mentioned that the current industry ratio is about 26%. For some banks, that's a number to aspire to. 26%, which is 16% above the minimum tolerable limit, is a baseline on its own term. For some of the banks, that's a number they even aspire to. If I had 26%, I'd be so much better off. And the reason I mention that is because there are so many actions that can be taken as a group to address this issue, rather than allowing the banks to work. And I'm not suggesting that central banks allowing the banks to work on their own, but there has to be concerted efforts from all sides of the spectrum to approach this issue. While the banks are taking the steps that they're taking, there are also obstacles with respect to other stakeholders that impinge our ability to achieve the objectives that we want to achieve. For instance, we've mentioned ad nauseam the problems we've had with the judicial system with respect to resolving non-performing loan issues. That's something that has to be tackled like yesterday. Because while we take the efforts that we take and push the delinquent customers, and now delinquent customers are not, some of them are not delinquent because they choose to be, but because of the circumstances they face with, and those who understand we can work with. Yeah. But there are some of them who deliberately refuse to pay off of facilities. Like I see the customers I'm dealing with right now. One of them has been coming to the bank for the past 5 years with one manager's check. The check hasn't changed. It's in the same check. And you come to the bank every time and say, I want to pay off 50% of your outstanding interest if you waive 50% of outstanding interest. We try to work with this customer to come to an amicable solution. What we agree with the proposal, let's sign a restructure agreement. This guy kicks the can further down the road every time we have any engagement. And I suspect the reason he does this is because he thinks that when we finally resort to legal remedies, that's going to drag through the good system for a long period of time. At some point we get discouraged and say, let him go. So while we're making the efforts we're making to drive them towards compliance, there also has to be concerted effort for all the stakeholders to also complement the bank's effort in achieving the collective goals that we set for ourselves. No economy survives without a strong banking sector. We saw in 2008, the global financial crisis emanated not just from the banking sector, from a small portion of the banking sector, the subprime market. And that issue cascaded across the world and the time more to its needs. But we saw major financial institutions going on them. Freddie Mac or what's the name of
Lehman Brothers.
Lehman Brothers. One of the biggest investment houses in the world. That's because of that. That was a crisis that emanated from the banking sector. That's just a simple point out to you how important it is, how pervasive the banks are in the banking sector and the overall economy. So if the banking sector is not as strong as it should be, it undermines the economy ability to grow and achieve the objectives that are set for it. So the issue of non-performing loans has to be seriously looked at from a variety of instances. And this is where we need to have all the key stakeholders on board, and we can have a meeting of the minds as to how to attack this situation once and for all before it has the ability to affect on the banking sector. So those are the two issues I wanted to pick up on. The issue of transparency that was mentioned earlier, and we appreciate the fact that this is done, and we hope that this continues. Like I said, not everybody across the state was going to agree with the rationale later, but the fact that you laid out so succinctly tells us that these are not decisions. These are carefully considered decisions, and we arrive at that point. So thank you very much, Governor, for having us here.
Thank you, Dr. Allison. Can we have one more, at least one more?
Yes, I just want
Okay, so from a financial institution?
Yes.
So we can have one more comment, question from a financial institution before moving on to private sector representative.
Thank you so much, Governor. Just in addition to what my more senior colleagues have said, there's a specific.
Who you are, sir? Who's from?
I'm Abraham Johnson, and I represent Mr. Robert Hughes, who's the CEO of African First Bank. There's this specific aspect of the banking industry that I thought to raise, since it impacts how the pressure on the U.S. dollars. That has to do with the way we look at outgoing transfers and incoming transfers. For now, we have, for example, I have a customer who wants to bring in something around $8 million a week, and to bring that money in, the requirement from the central bank, if I have to use the central bank to bring that money, I have to pay 0.75%. 0.75% to bring that money to this country, and I mean to repatriate the fund. And to send out money, we give it a range, flat rate for like $50, $150. So what that tells us is that to send out money is easier than to bring money into the country. And I think there needs to be a broader conversation from the NPC as to how this can be treated in a way that encourages funds to come to the country, which will have a very good effect on the pressure on the exchange rate. So I just thought to raise that in addition to what my colleagues have said, my senior colleagues have said. Thank you.
Good morning, Papa. So on women's side, President of the National Association of Foreign Exchange of Liberia. Thanks today for this meeting. First and foremost, I must commend you for leadership as being notable and appreciated by many of us in the sector. So, with that said, I would like to raise a few concerns. One, when will the Central Bank of Liberia, under your leadership, engage with key stakeholders to find a concrete and lasting solution to the ongoing exchange rate challenges we face with now? We are not necessarily calling for a fixed rate, but we rather for proper regulation and consistent oversight that will help manage the stability in the market with suitable way. So my question, we all know that our people do not understand policy or rating and statement, they don't understand it, they prefer actions. So we, as it stands now, the National Association of Foreign Exchange will serve as a key stakeholder or a bridge between the central bank and the informal sector. However, since the ascendancy, we have not had any formal engagement or dialogue in addressing the practical and challenges we are faced with in the foreign exchange market. This dialogue is essential so as to responsibly, when can we as stakeholders sit with your team and you to chart and coordinate pathway to ensure a sound regulation and the market stability is ensured to serve our people. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sai. So let me begin with the second concern of engagement. I want to assure you that only this administration will engage with you. So consider that in the month of August, after the festivities, we will engage with you. Our commitment, we came in here with a commitment to engage with all the stakeholders. So we started with the Insurers Association. We move on to the banks. In fact, with the banks, because of their critical role, it is a quarterly engagement that we normally have with the commercial banks. So the next engagement is now being planned with the Bankers Association again. But we can assure you that NAFIBO will be meeting with you. So please take note of that, and let's arrange an engagement with NAFIBO. On the exchange rate, so this is what we're doing as a central bank. During our confirmation, we were asked a question of how we intended to tackle the issue of exchange rate. Firstly, the economy is a liberal economy that we have. And so one of the ideas that we floated was to encourage the repatriation of proceeds in a country. Let's put proceeds. And once we have those coming in country, what will happen is that the system will always have excess liquidity in terms of US dollars, and that will support the exchange rate. And so we started that conversation. That conversation has gained steam. It has been taken up by the Senate. The Senate now has a draft bill from discussions. The House of Representatives is also anxiously waiting for that. At the level of the EMT, the recent meeting chaired by the Honorable Minister of Finance, it came up and it received a resounding acceptance. So we are working to be able to address that. Now, bringing all stakeholders together, we must have a solution that we can proffer, because you'll be asking us, how do you intend to address this? The issue of exchange rate is a supply and demand issue that you have. So when you have a low supply of US dollars, obviously the local currency will depreciate. If you have a higher supply or demand for local currencies, the local currency will appreciate. So what we are trying to do as a central bank and as a government is to enhance the supply of US dollars in the local economy. And the way we think that we can do that without going against our international partners in terms of capital control is to implement a repatriation of export proceeds. Those export proceeds will be repatriated not through the Central Bank of Liberia, but through the commercial banking system. They will come through the commercial banks, and once the commercial banks have excess US dollar liquidity, they will be able to intervene in the market at a relatively short period of time and at low cost to those who need the FX to facilitate their imports. As we indicated earlier on, the Liberian economy is an import-driven economy. So what we presented to you was a trade deficit, because we are importing more than we are exporting. And so the demand on foreign exchange is really high. But again, in collaboration with our fiscal authorities, we're able to stabilize the exchange rate, because we saw immediately after the holiday season, the Christmas season, when the exchange rate just started moving, because there was a huge demand for FX to restock, and so that drove the FX the exchange rate up. Thus depreciated the local currency. That's quite stabilized. We engage with the fiscal authorities, and there are interventions that are being made in kind of the intent of how the fiscal authorities also intervene in terms of paying, be it contractors, be it vendors, and also, they say working with the Republic of Association to be able to attract, to address this particular situation. So we already have, as a government, as a central bank, we already have identified a pathway to addressing this particular situation. But again, it takes time. It's a process. It's not even, and so we are now going through this process, and we are hoping that as soon as possible we can have this bill enacted, and then we as a central bank will now come up with the regulations and policies in terms of how we can address that particular situation. Also, just to go back to the comment made by the president of the Liberal Banking Association in terms of PAPS, I think Miata is not in the room. We need to engage with PAPS to be able to address the situation of moving money on the PAPS platform, both local currency and the US dollars also, so that the losses sustained by individuals who are using the platform will not be at a level that discourages them from using the system. So we'll be engaging with PAPS to see how that can work. But what we also want to do is to continue to encourage your clients for the use of the PAPS platform, because it helps to lower the demand for FX currently, especially for those who are generating huge revenue in local currency. So they don't need to go to the market to buy FX in order to facilitate their importation. So we will continue to work. It's a moving target, and we'll continue to work with all of the stakeholders to make sure that we can achieve that objective. But Nafibo, we're coming. We'll meet with you. We'll hear your concerns, and we'll all sit together to see how we can address those concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Nafibo. I know that's good news for you. So, can we have someone from the private sector?
Yeah. The president is there.
Oh, the president.
Thank you, Governor. I think I want to...
Sorry, you are?
My name is James M. Strutter, the president of Liberia Business Association, for short, LIBA.
Okay.
I want to say thank you for your leadership. The president for the Vendor Association, I've said that, the minister said that. I know you for the grassroots, I know what you stand for. I know it was not a mistake when the president appointed you here. I know there's going to be a lot of changes taking place. And I want to say, I want to commend you and your team for the work well done. But there are a few things I want to bring to the table. The business people will be very happy to see what rates is ease at the point, like the payment system that you are bringing into the system. Like we have been young, Liberia is beyond everything that we're discussing. And so like when you are talking about it, we're like, can it be today? because we want to see the safety of our people going out there on the border crossing issues. The second thing is there are issues that have to do with no performance loan that the LBDR boss have just spoken about. I think there is a reason why we need the request is made. I strongly believe there is a need that we sit on the table and look at the issues that are creating these things. Because factors are creating what we're talking about. If we do not deal with the factors, we will always see ourselves going the way we're going. This is a small country, a small economy that can be handled. But there are factors. If we do not look at it, we will always be missing them out. But I want to say thank you because the engagement, it tells of volume. Now people be aware of the situation that is going on because as a leader, always that I will be talking to the membership and then telling them what we anticipate to see coming out tomorrow. But if you just give up a documentation and next day we see an order coming out, it's a Central Bank say, everybody, hey, what's Central Bank, how to do this? But once we come to the meeting, the stakeholders say they listen to it and we go and share the information before the issue can be out there. I think they'll be okay. Thank you very much and we appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr.
I want to give us
I just wanted to make a comment on the payment system. So the payment system is working. Yes, it was moving at the very slow or snail pace when we got in here. And we had to put the snail to move a little bit. And in doing that, we had to, shake some, grounds, and people were a little bit kind of offended by the approach that we took, but we thought that we needed to take that approach. And so it has gotten some level of acceptance. They're moving with us. In fact, I've just been alerted that I have a meeting with the World Bank country manager on Thursday, and we're going to be discussing the payment system because the project is actually being supported by the World Bank, and so we are moving with that. Also with the AFDB, we are moving with the upgrade on the ACH, the ACP, and the RTGS. That exercise is also ongoing currently. The president did mention the issue of check clearing. In fact, I've asked my banking department to give me a schedule of when we can start all manual clearing. That we have to move to full automated clearing. So ask them to come back to me with all sort of excuses, but I'm saying I'm not going to accept any excuse henceforth. We have to move to full automated clearing. Whatever the challenges are, we have to resolve those challenges and we can move to full automated clearing. So one of the things that we decided to also take out of the payment system ahead is we are working with the two MNOs to integrate them so that transactions can be performed on the network seamlessly. So you don't have to have two phones to do your mobile or Orange Money transaction separately, and then you have MTN. We're working with them. The process is ongoing. We are very hopeful. We are very hopeful that by the end of August we can have something that is coming out again for the population. Because it's not all of us that can afford it, and we think that in order for us to drive financial inclusion, we have to be able to ease the way people do business in the country. So that exercise is also going. So that is we're leapfrogging the payment system, the deployment of the National Electronic Payment Switch, which is on course. The process is moving. We're now at this stage, I can tell you that we are in the contracting phase of the vendor that is going to guide the entire payment system or the national switch deployment. That's where we are in payment system deployment, and we push our partners to say we have to get it before the schedule date. And they've given us their commitment that we will try to fast track some of these processes. But in how it sometimes, because this is technology, sometimes you do have some glitches, even with the integration of the two MNOs. That's what I'm saying, those communications, because I'm falling off, and I'm saying those, sometimes you can have these unexpected delays. But there is a real commitment to having the national switch deployed before the December 26th schedule. But in order to do that, we are also moving ahead with the two mobile money companies to be able to bring them together. so that people can now use, if you are a non-standard mobile money user, you don't need to have a phone, you can pay to Orange and vice versa. That's what we're trying to encourage, and so that exercise is actually going. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Mr. Governor. So we will have a couple more questions. And we encourage questions from civil society. I understand this woman here from Central.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Gerald Yekula, and I work as program manager at Central. And I'm also assistant professor of law at the Liberia School of Law. Thank you very much, Mr. Governor. I listened to the preamble to the directive in which you mentioned a reduction in consumer prices. I know that you specifically talked about increasing the prices of gold and cocoa beans. I also thought it was very important for you to state specifically which prices have reduced. I'll give some examples so that we can also know which prices we're talking about there. The question about de-dollarization, and this really affects citizens in terms of vendors and businesses preferring the US dollars. So I know that the central bank has done some work wherein businesses are encouraged or mandated to post the exchange rates or the prices of goods. I'm not sure how that's working in terms of the prices of goods. Or if you go to our stores, they really are denominated in US dollars, but of course at the counter you will see the exchange rates posted. But the question really is, what enforcement mechanisms are there if a vendor or business refuses to take the Liberian dollar? Is there any hotline? Is there a mechanism in place that the central bank may be alerted that this particular vendor or business is not taking the Liberian dollar? Because many people will experience that, and I think it's very important so that there has to be a very robust mechanism that will hold vendors accountable to be able to comply with the directive of the central bank. The question also about the US dollar and illicit financial flows, as we talk about it. Corruption happening in the country, and people will easily take the money to buy a dollar in America, and that's very simple because we have the US dollars everywhere. So when we steal money, it's easy to just launder our monies, right? So the question of de-dollarization for me, I think, is an imperative. And we really have to work to see how we can have a single currency because we'll have easy access to the US dollar. More and more people can easily siphon over our country money. So I think it's very important, as you even talk about PAPS or payment system. What incentivizes one to go and use PAPS to transfer money to Ghana to buy goods when they have the US dollar right in a bank account or right in the shop? I just leave the country with my US dollar, I just pay a US dollar, I don't have to use PAPS. So the very existence of dual currency regime poses a threat to any attempt to integrate locally. So I think we have to pay very keen attention to how we can really safeguard and prioritize the use of the Liberian dollar. That will be very important, or else the PAPS will be a failure, just to say. My last one will be on the question of the access to credit by Liberians, of course. I don't know what intentional steps the bank is taking to ensure that, many people complain that the business sector was talking about access to credit or non-performing loans. I would think your administration should take very keen interest in ensuring that, for example, we can call banks and see, look, if you're giving money out of this portal, how many Liberians they get it? How many Liberians are benefiting? What is their exchange rate? Those deliberate efforts, just yesterday, we had somebody come from the African Development Bank to launch a youth entrepreneurship investment bank. Those should be some, initiatives of the Liberian government. Deliberate attempts to see how can we empower private sector, how can we empower the youth, how can we empower agriculture, and now the African Development Bank comes to Liberia and do those kinds of things. So I think even if the central bank is not in a prime position to do that, but there has to be some regulatory directives that will be able to spur those kinds of intentional development of the private sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sental. I think, both the Minister of Finance and myself would think, your questions, John Lay, as there's some clarification that the Minister needs want to make. In terms of consumer prices, because that's where you started from, what we've noticed is that we noticed a decrease in domestic food prices, food produced locally. And I think we have to recognize the efforts being made by government And so once we noticed the reduction in domestic food prices, we had to do a deep dive into understanding what was driving the lower domestic food prices. So what we realized was that the rural productivity effort is actually enabling farmers to harvest their crops and move to market quite on time and be able to sell. Now, if once you can get the farmers to produce their goods and move it to market, definitely prices will reduce. So that's what we observed. So the consumer prices we are referring to basically a reduction in local domestic food prices. That's what we noticed during our review. And so as a result of that, you saw an improvement in the inflation. Inflation adjusted from 12.5% to 11.1% at the end of May. My team have done further analysis, and in fact, the inflation rate for June is now put at 9.9% for June. So that is a great improvement, but it's all been driven by domestic food production and domestic food prices. That's what we are seeing. In terms of de-dollarization and then the enforcement of accepting Liberian dollars for transactions. In fact, there is a discussion right now going on between ourselves, the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of Commerce. So the Ministry of Commerce is the one that is actually responsible for enforcing this. So we are working on a directive that will be jointly signed by the Ministry of Finance, the Central Bank of Liberia, and the Ministry of Commerce to ensure that prices are quoted in US dollars, but the exchange rate is visible in every center, and not only that, that you are allowed to pay in Liberian dollars at the exchange rate. I'm sure the Ministry of Commerce will have a consumer or a hotline where if you walk into a store and you want to make payment in local currency and the store owner says no, they want to accept US dollars, you can stand there and call the hotline and the Ministry of Commerce will intervene. But those are some of the undertakings that we are taking currently as central bank and working along with the central government, the Ministry of Finance, and the Ministry of Commerce. So in terms of the illicit financial flows, wherever you can easily take your Liberian dollars and walk out and do transactions, again, like we said, we're going to engage with banks that will be able to incentivize Liberians who are performing the transaction or who are paying with local currency, but at the same time that the system can accept US dollars for payment for your goods and services. Now, this is what we're doing. We are also engaged with the LRA. And we had an incident quite recently in terms of how much cash, physical cash, you can move out. We're going to be reinforcing that. We've engaged with the LRA, we've spoken to them, and they have started putting in some measures in place, at least at the LRA. And there was an incident reported to us recently. So there are measures that are being put in place by government to be able to address how cash is moved out of the country. It's a concern for all of us. And de-dollarization is a long-term goal. So while it is imperative, again, I always caution, let's approach de-dollarization cautiously. We need to work to make sure that we can get our fundamentals right. And one of the fundamentals that we are trying to get right is the bill that is under consideration right now, the export proceeds repatriation bill. If that bill is enacted, that's one of the ways that we think that we can address it. And then we'll begin to take steps to encourage de-dollarization. But again, the government is making up the efforts, like you rightly mentioned, the launch of the youth entrepreneurship bank yesterday by the African Development Bank and the government of Liberia. So it's not just an initiative by the ADB. It's a government-led initiative So we will try to encourage those initiatives, and then gradually, as we strengthen the economic base of the country, wherein we are able to build our export sector, and we are able to export and generate foreign exchange, then you can begin steps to de-dollarize. At this point in time, if we de-dollarize today, and we say all transactions will be put at $11, we don't have the foreign exchange to support our import base. We don't have the reserves yet. But there's a deliberate attempt by this central bank to build reserves. From when we came to where we are today, there is a gradual increase in our reserves. What you saw as reduction in months of import cover to down to 2.1% was because of the trade deficit that we had. The imports, import payments exceeded export payments. And so when you adjust that, that reduces the amount of import cover. At some point in time, we have already met the ECOWAS benchmark of 3 months of import cover. Under the central bank, under this government, we were able to meet 3 months. But because of the huge export payments or import payments that we just made, that has reduced our amount of import cover to 2.1%. But the government is taking deliberate steps to be able to address that situation. So probably Mr. Minister can speak to more to the youth entrepreneurship, bank issue.
Yes, I just wanted to join the governor, and maybe not just to clarify for Councillor Yakula is Councillor, right? Anthony, okay. I'm pushing you to your ambition. You know, the launch of the Youth Entrepreneurship Investment Bank was done jointly by the President of the African Development Bank, Dr. Akinwumi Additional, and President Boakai. Let me talk about these donor-related initiatives. We as a country, in fact, the African Development Bank, the conception, the ideas came from Liberia. And Dr. Additional recognized that. One of Liberia's brilliant economists, Dr. Romeo Horton, working, Liberia, we have to be proud of ourselves. At the honors of the African Development Bank, they recognize that. Working with President Tubman and the others. They started it, and he headed a committee of 9 to think about an African Development Bank. So it is our bank. They, as Minister of Finance, it's not just me, all ministers of finance of Liberia are governors on the board of the African Development Bank. You get it? The board of governors is the highest decision-making body. They have the board of directors, they have management. At the apex, all ministers of finance of Africa, we are the governors. The policy directions are approved. When we go into annual meetings of the African Development Bank, we are going to meetings of the governors. Even at the World Bank, the Minister of Finance of Liberia and many countries are governors of the World Bank board. We are both governors. And that I could go on, So the decisions, the policy directions of those banks are shaped at that level. Now, things don't just happen for the country like that, just because they love it. They're shaped in the discussion. Each of these international financial institutions may develop a country program, a strategy. You discuss it, you put emphasis areas, and some of the fundings are even concessional loans. Many of the, you get grants, you get concessional loan, and some other funding sources that are not too concessional. some of the things you see happening is the World Bank project. It is Liberian people's project because sometimes, as low, as concessional as the loan may be, we pay back. We 40 years, very low interest rate, but we pay. At the payment time, if you look on the debt side of the government, when we say the debt service obligation of Liberia is now in the budget, we have more than 155 million we have to pay. It's even lower than all the obligations we pay, and we pay these international organizations all the time. So it is a Liberian initiative. It is a Liberian initiative, yes. You know, of all the countries in Africa, they started with Liberia, which is good for us. So we'll continue to make the case. So Liberia, don't distance yourself and say that was done by the African Development Bank. Yeah, African Development Bank will tout its achievement in Liberia, as they will tout their achievements in Sierra Leone. When I was there as a manager of the African Development Bank in Uganda, that's what we did. We said African Development Bank, but the Uganda government shapes the development. Where do we put the money? And if they don't approve it, we don't do it. You know, so jointly the African Development Bank touts it, we tout it. It is for us. Let's continue to do that. I just want to, while I'm on the floor, I just wanted to address some concerns, or little concern, the concern raised by Dr. Augustine concerning the frustration, the MPL. One of the things I suggest that we do, and even the head of the LIBA here, because what LIBA is proposing is that there are factors that are explaining non-performance that we all need to study. Yes, the banks are frustrated, and I will also propose that we have that meeting where we call a multi-stakeholder meeting. But we, on the fiscal side, the government side, we need to be part of it. You know, there are things we can do. All the actors in the economy on the government side, the central government side, commerce, NRA, we need to sit in that meeting with the private sector entities, the LIBA, the Chamber of Commerce, the banks, central bank, and let's hear everything together. Because we are concerned about the non-performing loan. For me, I wear double cap. I'm the chair of the board of the LBDA. I understand what he's talking about. So when I wear that cap, I want to flow 100% of what he's saying, then my other cap catches me. You know? So that must hear you too. But the issue of the commercial code and the frustration the banking sector is having in the judicial system has been persistent for quite a while. The court system cannot be used by people with not too noble intentions to frustrate a whole sector. And the fifth, there was a lot of joy when we, as a government, set up the commercial code. But now, if it is a place for cases to go and die, or the judicial system is a place for, excuse me, it's a graveyard now, you know, in some respect, people are, you know, I don't think it's what we need. The judiciary has been a very good help to the economy, and that some unwittingly may be using some tactics to draw the judiciary into, you know, areas that are not too, you know, I don't want to use the other word, but what I suggest, we have a good engagement before with the outgoing Chief Justice. Now the new Chief Justice is coming, which is a good movement. We need to have a time, banking sector, CBA governor ourselves, let's have a conversation. Because besides this issue of non-performing loan, we too on the fiscal side, we have some concerns. So that we know everyone has to be, they have to operate independently. The concerns we have with the judiciary, where we can improve, they are doing well, but there are areas that we must do better. I think this is the opportune time before the new Chief Justice takes over let's go, let him hear us out, and I think through that we can get some results. That's my suggestion.
Thank you, Mr. Minister, for just adding that bit in terms of engaging with the Supreme Court. So when we go over here, we've had the engagement with the Supreme Court. We brought them up to speed to what the issues were within the commercial banking system. It was surprising to know that during that engagement with the Supreme Court, we were asked, what is MPL? So, after we went through, they asked us to come back, and I think we've come back to you, the Bankers Association, to be able to catalog all of the issues so that we can present to them and seek an audience between the Bankers Association and the Supreme Court also, so that they hear your side. Let them hear from you yourself that these are the issues that you were faced with, and that you need their help in resolving those issues. You know, many times I've shared my own personal experience with you working with the same Supreme Court. You know, like yesterday was my birthday. I spent a day in the Supreme Court. I was following up on a case, a collection case, and this case was assigned on my birthday. And I had spent my entire day in the Supreme Court on my birthday. And at the end of that hearing, there was no ruling during that term of court. And so it took some time before one of the justices of the Supreme Court, who happened to be a customer of the bank, happened to pass by and ask to see me. And I used that opportunity just to bring them up to speed, you know, what these issues really meant for the commercial bank. And I was very clear with the Associate Justice. I said, Your Honor, when you deposit money here, I don't mark it. No. I don't. It's not reserved for you. You bring it here. If the minister comes for a loan, I give it to him. If he doesn't pay, I can't pay you. I can't pay you. And so you need to help me, you know. From that engagement, the next term of court, there was a ruling in our favor, and we collected. So this, you know, engagement, like the minister suggested, are very, very, you know, key and really critical. Sometimes it's just a lack of appreciation of what you're going through. You know, then they also need to hear from the other side. And so let's work together on it. Let's have a briefing for the bench, and then, you know, we can engage them on when, you know, they're available for us to meet and talk. I think all of them are interested in seeing the growth of this economy. When it comes, I'm a fanatic of getting the banking system working. I am a fanatic. The reason for that is that I firmly believe that the engine of growth of any economy is the private sector. Who fuels that engine? It's a commercial banking system. They have to fuel that engine for that engine to work. They're the ones that will create, by their intervention, they create the private sector grows, they create jobs, and the country develops. So if we cannot stand by and support the commercial banking system, we go nowhere. We're stuck. We're stuck. And so we have to support the commercial banking system to make sure that we can deploy funds and recover those funds. And I know one of the, you know, I mean, like the president of Liberia said, I've been there before. We've identified these issues, and I know exactly where he's coming from, Mr. Minister. The short-term nature of the funds that we provide to this private sector is a catalyst for NPLs. It's driving NPLs. But these commercial banks have no choice. If the system is working, if the NPL ratio of the country reduces, these commercial banks are able to go out there to approach DFIs and be able to get long-term funds to deploy, so they don't have to give you a 12-month facility. They can afford to give you 24 months, 36 months facility. and you were able to use those resources to turn them over and to pay back the commercial banks comfortably. But right now, what they have are all short-term deposits. My salary gets paid today, I put in Bloom Bank, Raji comes for credit, Bloom Bank gives to Raji. Tomorrow morning, I'm at the doorstep of Bloom Bank, I want my deposit. He goes running to Dr. Allison to get deposit to pay me, and so it just becomes this cycle. And so we need to address the fundamentals, and the fundamentals is to help the system. When you go out there as a commercial bank and throw DFRs, the first thing they look at is the NPL ratio of your country. They start to assess you from there. I have been through it with the USDFC, negotiating with them. 2 facilities. And that's where they start from, the country rating. They look at the NPL, right now Liberia is not even written yet, but they look at the NPL ratio of the country and say, but this is a risky destination for us to put our funds. That's the problem that we have, and we need to solve it. Well, it needs, like the minister said, it needs all hands on deck approach to be able to resolve it. So now you have the commitment of central government, the executive, the Central Bank of Liberia. We are committed to it because these are our constituents, and we have to make sure that we can work and see them prosper. Because when they prosper, they make our life here easier, and we get the other players, the legislature and the judiciary. Everybody has to come on board to understand that this sector needs support in order to support growth for this country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Minister?
The governor talked about the DFC and what it did in his past life for RD Bank. I need to say that in during the last visit of the president, we were deployed in multiple ways. And one of the groups we engaged was the DFC. I met the senior vice president for investment for Africa. You know, and the thing is to attract DFC financing for the private sector of Liberia. They want to scale up, whether it's agribusiness, electricity, and whatever. So the positive is that there are going to be things happening. The good thing about them, unlike other development finance institutions, their threshold for support is not that high. The African Development Bank with which I work, you know, you're talking about minimum 30 million. When you talk about 10 million, 15 million, you know, you're in a lower league. You say, can you talk something high? Our economy, you know, the businesses, the support we need, we may be talking about 5 million, 10 million, 15 million. The DFC is giving us assurance that they are flexible. So in engaging with you all in the private sector, we try to link private sector actors, people that are serious and credible with opportunities for financing. Even the banking system, they supported a financial institution, they can do more. So these things, you know, the outcomes of these engagements actualize over time. But we will try to work with the governor and work with private sector, link you all with people outside with whom we are engaging to assist. The net effect is to develop the economy, and the development of the economy, the growth of the economy will translate into better aggregates. But we can get all the better aggregates, but what the people in the streets, in the markets, in the counties, you know, how they see it is what is important. We talk about poverty, there are a lot of dimensions of poverty. They get something called learning poverty. Learning poverty. We're trying to reduce it. When we're talking about education, you can get everything, but you're not educated, you're poor in a way. So people only look at poverty in terms of money, just like this. But at the end of the day, when you address other things, even when you address health, it affects poverty. Because when you are unhealthy, it affects your productivity. You wouldn't do business. So when we put drugs in and make the sector efficient, it affects poverty. Agriculture, food security. The governor was talking about what is happening. You know, road connectivity is affecting agriculture. And agriculture, road connectivity has made prices to drop. Prices have dropped because farmers can now bring their goods to market quicker. Those smaller goods are perishable. You know, the fact that they can come and sell quicker, it has had a positive effect on inflation. So everything is interlinked. People don't see it. They say, oh, why are you talking about border? They'll tell you bread and butter issue. The bread and butter issue is a confluence of a lot of issues. And we're working on it. And our duty is to get in the back room. If you go to a restaurant, you go and see that the restaurant, you get a good food, you don't know the cooks. There are people sweating in the background. You see these guys? Yeah, so sorry for these researchers here. They are being good cooks. We have some people at the level of the finance ministry everywhere. They are cooking in the background. And people like you all, the brilliance we have, you know, give us stuff. One of the things we're trying to do, the good as Shutter was to hear from you. And this engagement is good because I've taken some notes. I've been taking some notes to see how we can help to enable some of the central bank's decisions. We will be calling some of you on some of these issues too. On our side, the central bank will be there and we'll be taking notes, hearing where it pinches, and then we'll be taking specific actions. The net effect is that things should improve. Improve not because of anyone, because it is the right thing to do. I know people can politicize here and there. We are doing the right thing because it is right to do the right thing. That's all. At the end of the day, we have to develop our country. And so, I just want to say this has been I was really planning, giving all my tight engagement, or I was planning only 1 hour. But it's been so, you know, very enriching that you carry me well. I think almost 2 hours.
Yeah. So, okay. Thanks very much, Minister. Essentially, that should bring us to the end of this session, but we've not been able to get additional questions from some of our stakeholders. I can only get hands up for those questions with the indulgence of the government and the minister. There are claims on your time. Civil society.
Yes, and that's so bad.
Is it okay with you? Is it? Yeah. Okay, we'll have another question.
The media is here, right?
The media can't go about question. Academia is here, so but with your indulgence, 3 questions.
Okay.
One from civil society, one from academia, and one from the media. Sorry, but that's it. Now, from civil society. Which organization?
I'm on Street Vendor. Street Leaders.
Okay.
Vendor Association.
Can you be brief, please? Yeah.
Thank you very much. I want to applaud the government. My name is Mohamed Ba.
Okay.
I'm the Secretary General of the National Street Vendor and Scratch Card Dealer Association. We deal with over 15,000 members around the country that do business with boxes and in the chaos. There is a question, a rooming question. We want to know, and we want to know how prepared is the government to address that. You are talking about de-dollarizing the economy, and I think you are talking about a cashless society, or most of our transactions will be done by electronic devices. Most time when people come to do transaction with us, we notice that those that control the app and those that control the transaction on the app, most times the government place or rate, sometimes you see 202, 199, or sometimes those that control the app, including the GSM company, their rate can be far below that when you want to try and add the Liberian dollar to the US dollar to do the exchange. You see that the company is stealing from, let's say, the company is stealing from the people, the rate can be far below. So how
Can I ask you a question? Yeah.
is the government to address such situation that transacting through electronic devices that the rate will be monitored by the company, the GSS company, that people will not be crying that the rate is far below that they are meeting their demand.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Bob, for that question. That is very, very valid concern. That concern has been discussed in this room, and we have our teams that have now been commissioned to go out there and do an investigation and come back with findings to us so that the central bank can take its appropriate measures. There's no one who is supposed to quote a rate that is over and above the central bank's rate. That's what the rates are out daily. And if you are found doing that, then of course you will face the full weight of the law. So that concern has been taken note of, and we have both our payment systems and our regulation and supervision departments are going out to conduct an examination of these operators. And once we have the findings, we will take the appropriate measures. Thank you.
Thank you. From one question from the media.
Yeah.
Yeah, Gerald.
Who?
Gerald.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, my name is Gerald from Page Africa. In your deliberation, Honorable Governor, you said that most of the commodities that we use, fuel and rice, globally the prices are down. But we noticed that in Liberia, these prices are still up. Usually when the prices are up globally, we feel the pinch. Now that they are down, we still feel the pinch. Why is it always that way? What can be done to balance that? And secondly, you talk about the switchboard. Everybody's here is talking about it. But I just want you and maybe the banking association to explain in layman terms what benefits does Liberia stand, the businesses stand to get when you bring it on this in December.
The National Association. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So in terms of prices, rise and fuel prices, that we saw declining on the world market and not being reflected in the local market, I'm not sure the central bank is the one that is better prepared to respond to that. But we do take note. And the Minister of Finance is here. He represents central government directly. And I'm sure that, the concern expressed, he can raise it in cabinet room with the Ministry of Commerce and then LPRC in terms of why prices on the international market are declining, but then prices on the local market of these same commodities is still being held constant. So, again, like I said, we are not better placed to really address that, to say why this is happening. What we're reporting to you is this is what we've seen, this is the trend that we are seeing. And so we are reporting that trend that we are seeing to you. In terms of the switch, again, that's a very valid question. I think the minister spoke about it in terms of the integrity that it's going to bring to revenue generation. But let me go back for the commercial banking system. This switch is going to allow all of the players in the market, the commercial banks, the mobile money operators, the fintech, everybody will come into one ecosystem. Currently, if I have a card issued to me by EcoBank, and I move to an EcoBank ATM and that ATM is down, I can't use it on LBDI's ATM. So what the switch is going to do is to bridge that gap, to bring everyone within the same ecosystem. So if you have one card, you can use that card on all ATMs, on all POS devices in the country. So you are not limited. Two,
it will give the Central Bank of Liberia visibility to see exactly what is happening within the system, be it the commercial banks, be it the fintech, be it the mobile money operators. Today, the mobile money operators, basically we get data from them. If you have a switch, or if we complete the integration work that we're doing with the mobile money operators, we will have access to that data real time. And so there's no way that they can manipulate that data. So these are the benefits that will bring. Two, we're trying to move to a cash. Initially, we will start with a cash-like society. The intent is to go cashless. But before you can do that, you must have a system that really supports you. If we try today to put a regulation to minimize cash transactions in the society, there will be complaints. Because if you went to LBDI and LBDI is down, you have to wait until LBDI is up. You can't access them. So we're trying to bridge all of these gaps that we see. The commercial banks by themselves, with the launch of the switch, will be able to interact among themselves seamlessly, in which gives them the opportunity to be able to focus their energy on developing additional products. For instance, if the switch is launched, and those are some of the steps that we will take. If the switch is actually launched, we will work with the commercial banks, we will work with lawmakers to reduce people working in commercial banks to do transactions. You don't need to work in a commercial bank. The banks should be able to use those staff that they focus on just doing your cash transaction to do other work. So you can redeploy them to be able to do other work within the banking system, because now you have a platform where transactions are happening seamlessly. In this country, almost everybody has a phone. And if you can do your transaction in the comfort of your home using your mobile phone, why do you want to leave Painesville to come to Cinco to do transaction? A banking transaction, when you can just do it from the comfort of your home. So these are the benefits. And then also, like we said, it will bring transparency to the revenue generation, because it's that revenue that the government really needs to put development in the country. Like we just mentioned, we saw a decline in domestic food prices. What is driving that? Road connectivity. So the government needs to raise more money to put into road connectivity. And that will help us to bring that level of transparency. The LRA people will be very, very happy supporting the Minister of Finance. The Minister of Finance will have the envelope to keep deploying money in these critical sectors, like just say health, education, infrastructure. The government can raise money and be able to deploy them. And so that's the reason why we are moving ahead with this national switch. And we can't be left behind. Like I always say, other countries are moving ahead, and Liberia, we are still here. We can't. We're coming to the table late, but we have to get there. We have to get to the table ourselves, so we can have a voice at the table. This is joining, like I said to my colleagues in Dakar, Senegal, Liberia is coming to the party late, but we intend to get to the party. And when you're getting to the party late, there are a lot of experiences, that you have already had, and so the mistakes that your colleagues made, you will not make those mistakes, because you are coming there late. They've been there before, they've seen all the challenges, they've overcome those challenges, so you are coming in and you are learning from them. But we intend to get there. Liberia cannot be left behind. We are in the 21st century. We are still doing things back in the 18th century. Like I was just saying, why should we still be doing manual clearing every day? Staff of commercial banks will leave, they have to come here with checks, and we shouldn't. So those are the enhancements that we will get when we fully deploy an electronic switch. We fully upgrade our ACH, our ACP, our RTGS systems are fully upgraded. It will minimize the level of effort that these banks have to put in. And what it does is that it will open them up to
to creativity and innovation. And they will begin to develop new products that can go on the market. And we are also not just going to sit back here at the central bank. We have a plan as we go along with the switch. We have a plan to have the national data center, and that national data center is going to host a youth innovation hub. Yeah, where young people can come in and sit down and put their brains to work to develop products. But without a fully functional switch, all of these we're just dreaming. And we're dreaming because other countries have dreamed and they woke up from their dream and they realize their dreams. We are staying in the dream world. We want to wake up from our dreams. That's what we're doing currently. So we hope that sooner or later we can wake up from our dreams and begin to actualize our dreams ourselves. The continent, Liberia cannot be left behind. The continent is moving. Our neighbors are moving. You go to Ghana. Some of you travel, you see, the economy of Ghana, how it's moving. And so we are also now beginning to think along those lines.
Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. And we have people from academia here. That will be the very final question. We have people here from academia. We have 2 universities represented here, from Notre Dame University and the University of Liberia. For them, they've got the theory, and this is the practical dimension to what they've been learning. So we'll have a final question. Now we'll recognize somebody. University of Liberia. Oh, the market woman. Oh, the market woman. Okay.
First of all, I'm from Mother Pisa, University of Liberia, and I want to take the governor and Minister of Finance for this opportunity. This is about the minister for us. My question has to do with the integration of the traditional system to digital system. So when you talk about the cashless society, so what is the economic compared to the digital economic system in the area of accessibility, affordability, and financial security? And also, how is the central bank and all of financial institutions preventing the exclusion of all of national life, like those in the rural areas of both incomes and let's say the area of those who have limited digital literacy?
So I think we'll start with the last one, and I will pass that on to my head, the champion for financial literacy and financial education, Councilor Zia, to just elaborate on what the central bank is actually doing. We launched in March, we launched PAPS. We also launched financial literacy and education, and that initiative is ongoing. So probably, Zion, you want to give outlines of that?
Thank you, Governor. So this is what we're doing to incorporate marginalized society, especially people in the rural counties. When the president launched on the 27th in March and announced the financial literacy program, the CBN made a commitment that we'll take the program outside of Monrovia. So what we're doing is, when we get to each county, we build a core team, a county team, and that includes marketing association, the disabled community, the RCFIs, the motorbike riders, all of those groups constitute a core team. We train them for the 2-3 days, and then we certificate them. They are left in the county to do town-to-town engagements. One of the key things we also do, besides the financial literacy, we tell them about the services the commercial banks are offering, and tell them the value of having an account. As a first step of using PAPS, as a first step of accessing the CBR bill. So there is a concerted, deliberate attempt on the part of the central bank to make sure that nobody is left behind. We are incorporating them at county level. We leave them there, we remain in contact with them, we receive their report on a regular basis. So be assured, we're working with them. As a matter of fact, Governor, we receive calls from the universities to join this financial education and literacy program. And so we'll be speaking with the governor so that as we engage the interior of the country, we can also be able to heighten awareness at the university level. Thank you.
So in terms of digitalization, the benefits associated with that, let's first mention the ease and convenience by which you do your transaction. That is key. And that's the reason why we are trying to move ahead with utilization. But let me say this, and probably I may be selfish for driving utilization here at the Central Valley. The reason we want to move to cash light and ultimately cashless, it's going to save me and the minister a lot in just printing notes.
Yeah.
And printing notes. The last notes we printed for the 8 billion, this country spent over $25 million. And those notes have to be replaced within the 3 years period. And so if you have to spend over $25 million every 3 years, just imagine what that would do. If you move digital, the cost of going digital, the cost of having a full operational national switch will not cost you 25 million. It wouldn't cost you 25 million. It's far less than 25 million. So there's huge cost saving on the part of the central bank and the central government. So those resources can be used and deployed in other critical sectors of the economy. So I'd like to say that I'm selfish. I mean, the drive towards utilization is out of selfishness because I want to reduce the cost to the central bank. But if the cost to the central bank and the cost to the central government is reduced, those resources can be redeployed. But also the level of convenience that you also get is also, while we cannot quantify it and say, this is the dollar value or the level of convenience that you get, satisfaction you get, we can't quantify it. But I think, is measurable by the acceptance level that we've seen. The mobile money platform. Now we have billions of transactions on the mobile money platform. People are using it so much to facilitate payments across the country. And so you want to encourage that, you don't want to discourage that. And so once we have seen that, we decided, okay, you know what, let's bring them together, let them speak to each other freely. So the people at the lower end of the ladder who can afford just their button phone with Orange or with MTN are still able to do transactions. And so to support that, that's the reason why we launched a financial education and literacy program to go out there to the markets. And it's good that the university have expressed interest in joining this fight. We started out with the Female Journalists Association. We brought on the National Culture Troop because we brought the National Culture Troop so that they can go out there. They will be able to speak the language that our people out there do understand. But again, if the universities come on board and these people are seeing their own children going to them and encouraging them to be able to move, I think it would be a plus for all of us. Our intent is that before we leave from here, we can have a fully functional and robust national payment system in this country. That's what we intend to do here.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Governor. This feedback session has been very important. I'm sure you enjoyed it. I'm sure the Governor and the Minister have enjoyed it. They've made a lot of notes. But I'll speak on behalf, or well, I'll advocate for the market group. There's no way we can leave from here without hearing the market people speak and what they think about this session, about what the governor's been saying. So I think there is a dispensation for the market people to speak. And their representative is here, Madam Elizabeth Sambola. So if you can be brief, Madam Sambola.
I will be brief. Good morning, Madam. Yeah, I know that afternoon now. We are still, we here now to. We just want to say thank you for everything that was said here. Some of the English we understood. We didn't understand it. But I want to say this is, as you said that the rural connectivity will be a good thing for marketing association. We clap for that. Because there are so many of us, we are selling Monrovia, but we are in agriculture too, in our little villages. But sometimes we grow pineapple, we grow things that are perishable. Before reaching here, like a few times I went to pick my pineapple, I will come in the break water food. And no way to come. I leave there some of the pineapples. Before reaching here now, what I expected, I didn't get. It discouraged you on our business. Then we have this, the people that sell in the stores. When Central Bank come up with telling us that the rate will be 200, but when you go, you have this liberty in your hand. When you ask the fuller man how much for this thing, you will say $5 US. But when you take this 200, you say, put $20 on it before I give it to you. What is the Commerce Ministry going to do to perform? Then we have the mobile. The mobile money, the orange money. When somebody send money to you from orange money, sometimes they take only $100. But when somebody send money to you in Lone Star, they take it from 400 or 500. What is happening? And we want to join you. Let the University of Liberia join you to educate our people. We can better do it too. We want to join this boat for us to do it too. So that's my
After your response, Governor, that will bring in.
Thank you, Madam Sambola. Thank you. I think on the infrastructure side, which is the roads, I will leave that to the minister.
Yeah.
What I will speak about is the mobile money and the pricing by the two mobile money companies.
Yes.
We are working to resolve that particular situation.
Thank you.
We're engaged with them. As we go to the end of next month, I'm sure that situation will be resolved. We'll have the full commitment, they are on board, the integration work is ongoing, and once that is done, we will have a price flow. And so Orange will not be charging you something, and MTN is charging you something different. So we are addressing that, and thank you for volunteering to join our financial literacy program. And it's important because your people, the people that you work with, will understand you more than when Zion goes there and speaking all this. They will understand you because you speak their language, and it's rather important.
Thank you very much, and I still remember from the launch of the POPs.
Yes.
And some of the comments she made really resonated with me. It's good that in her own way she explained how lack of road connectivity affected her to the pineapple.
Yes.
And because people asking this question, bread and butter. When I say we're doing roads of bread and butter, it's our road and then bread and butter. So the thing we're doing, we got to deal with the main constraints to growth in the economy. When Liberia won its first compact, there were three main things that were considered constraints to access to finance. So when we are tackling these things, we are tackling the macro problems, and then to not to be too high-tech. When we deal with these things, they have a way of influencing the thing at the, to use Jeff Ward, the macro level, the NY level. So, there's one of the things that I showed you, there's going to be more roads.
Amen. Thank you.
If you saw a road last year, you're going to see more road this year and next year and going on.
Amen. Thank you.
We're not just talking about road, we're talking about paving the roads.
Amen.
It's going to get better.
Especially for Tony Blue.
If you saw electricity, you see electricity, you're going to see more electricity, more light. Just as the people across the bridge saw some light. They're going to get connected. It's not going to stop. it's going to get better. And I can say that the net effect, working with the central bank, working with our partners, I've heard some of the issue about pricing. I'm taking some notes. I'm going to engage the Commerce Minister. We're going to take a one government approach to make sure that we're solving the problem. And thanks for this engagement of the central bank. At the level of the finance ministry, we're going to engage you all to hear from you the market reality.
That's it.
We want it from you. And no other person can explain it better than those in the market.
Yes.
So get ready for our invitation shortly.
Amen.
Maybe the governor and myself will be competing over your time.
I'm willing.
Okay. Thank you very much, Minister. So I know we would have wanted to go on and on and on and on, but we cannot. These big people have important claims on their time. So that is it for the feedback section. We'll now have brief closing remarks and then vote of thanks to end this event. But you don't have to go away after the vote of thanks, because we've made available some refreshments to enable us to network. So the man who will give the brief closing remarks, Professor Jiwe, is on the Monetary Policy Committee. He's the external member of the Monetary Policy Committee, and that's how it works. So we have a diverse membership. It's not just one CBL alone making the decision. We have him, so that speaks to how everything's been decentralized. So we'll give Professor Jiwe time to make brief closing remarks. Professor?
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. Let me, on behalf of the two independent members of the MPC, thank the government, who is part and parcel of 21 and of the Happy Economy, and the Ngafuan, who is on the fiscal side. I don't see any institutions here that is outside of the macro economy, the private sector, the banks, other sectors. From the Minister of Commerce is not here. The first question I asked was giving the level of discussions when it comes to prices. I think we discussed that in our last NBC meeting. Governor, this meeting is very, very essential. It goes a long way in deepening the understanding of issues regarding forestry rate. And as you reported, and based on own information I gathered from my 9 years of the asset bank Liberia, if you divide non-Liberians taking loan and not taking loan, Liberians mostly are in default. That's my list of them. Over the years, I'm quite sure a lot of banks here can speak to that. And that's the private sector we talk about. And we in our own country, we are in default most of the time. Put aside the issue of people not understanding the fundamental running a small business, which is important though. But sincerely, we decided to be in business, self-employed, we borrow money, and we are in default, which is not good. Over the years, we look at how much money the bank brings on bad loans. And I hear 8 million. Many times we tell them, no, let's go back and find a different approach. Then the moral solution is the following year, how much can we get back? Then we go with a repayment. Sometimes we use result of stay. By the time where monetary went different direction, fiscal went different direction. President based on exuberance. I mean, authority. I'm not the president. No, this is the time. Once you want stability, then you want to say that you have the power. No, that's not. And everyone needs to put together. At the sound of my voice. But I'm delighted today with the managerial staff well, but making sure that indeed you are working with the appropriate institutions, brainstorm, and find common solutions for our challenges. And that's exactly what you're doing. You have to reach out. Forget about having power. But the time that when you are on the ground, a farmer's child, a fisherman's child, today you are up there. You left this problem there and it still persists. How do we do that? Put the children on one side, come to empirical issues. Empirical issues, brainstorm to find solution. Let me appreciate all of these and answer associations. So move talk, move understand the issues, move find solutions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Professor. Now, some people will be happy that we're coming to the very end. And to tie the knot there, we'll have a Director of Communications in person of Alfonso Zion now give vote of thanks so that you can have your networking session, your refreshment.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wosi. Mr. Minister, the President of the Bankers Association, President of the Agro Marketing Association, President of the Agro Business Association, President of Money Exchangers, representative of the street vendor, civil society, the head of the economic departments of the universities, colleagues of the media. Let me, on behalf of the executive governor and the board of the central bank, say we really appreciate the presence and the time that we spend in the central bank. Like many of you acknowledged, we've sort of, on the instruction of the governor, expanded the engagement at these meetings. The only thing the governor has also approved is that it's not only a question of bringing people in this room to discuss, we have to have a vibrant public engagement. And along that line, he's approved the training of 50 media persons, talk show hosts, editors. It's not a question of questioning the capacity to understand these issues. Some of us who work with central bank are still learning. So we intend to roll out that training so people understand monetary policy issues, and then we can have a vibrant engagement with the public beyond justice reform. And so we are very, very appreciative. The president of the Agro Business Association is always available to the governor. Yesterday was in his office recording a video on the challenges in terms of the instant payment system that we're talking about. The anytime we call him is available, so we're doing that video for the pilot launch of the RIPS system. The Marketing Association, even the commercial banks head, it's not only at the very policy level, we have a bank communication group. It's not as active as we wish it would be, but it's a starting point and you need to sort of share information. So we very, very much appreciate your support to the central bank. We think you are a vital partner and we'll always be calling on you. After this meeting, we talked to Madam Samuel, like we're having a meeting on the mutilation of the money. The board also approved a program that we should go out there to engage people on the fast mutilation of the bank. So we'll call Madam Samuel to join us in that meeting so that we can have a discussion as to how we roll it out. So we appreciate your coming. Thank you very much, and we'll continue to engage. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.